empathogens are something very different. A lot of them are just a different alkaloid structure altogether, and they don't typically promote visuals. What they do tend to promote are feelings of connection, empathy, and a deepened emotional awareness. And I think this is what is so profound about empathogens, is that when you take them, there's something that happens where you seem to be able to better understand your own emotions and the emotions of other people. And that can have really big impact on not only just your relationship with other people, but your relationship with yourself.
Welcome to the Modern Psychedelics podcast. Thank you so much for being here and choosing to spend some time with me today. I'm your host, Lana. This is the place where we explore how modern humans can work with psychedelics and plant medicine to engage more deeply with life. You can expect balanced and grounded conversations around therapeutic, spiritual, and recreational containers. All right, let's journey. So here's my not so secret. The number one tool in my toolkit, the thing that has changed my life for the better the most, aside from psychedelics, of course, is not therapy. It's not breath work. It's not meditation. It's not even the yoga I've been doing for 15 years. It's coaching. Because coaching is the most actionable tool that I have come across. A few years ago, I fired my therapist and hired a coach, and working with a coach helped me start moving in the direction I wanted to move. And I finally stopped feeling stuck. I fell so in love with coaching, even though I wanted to become a therapist at that time. I decided instead to get trained and certified as a professional coach. As a psychedelics-informed life coach, I work with people who are on the psychedelic path, which is probably you if you're listening to this podcast. The Global Coaching Client Study from the International Coaching Federation shows most clients who work with a professional coach report improved work performance, more growth and opportunities, greater self-confidence, enhanced relationships, more effective communication skills, better work and life balance, and an improvement in wellness. According to the same study, 99% of people who were polled said that they were somewhat or very satisfied with the overall coaching experience. Coaching works. I see similar results amongst my clients every week. You can actually read their beautiful in-depth testimonials on my website at modernpsychedelics.net. Along with being psychedelics informed, my style is process oriented. We live in this outcome obsessed world where our default mode is to live life for the destination or the end result. But I have come to understand that the gifts are actually in the journey, and that's where we grow and learn and enjoy life the most. So that's why I equip my clients with tools and skills for the long game of life and the long game of medicine work. I'm currently onboarding new one-on-one clients into my coaching practice. So if this sounds like it would be supportive for where you're at, get in touch with me. I would love to hear from you. And you can click on the link in the show notes or head to modernpsychedelics.net/coaching. There's lots of info there for you along with those testimonials. I can't wait to connect with you. That's modernpsychedelics.net/coaching. Okay, let's go back to the episode. Hello and welcome back. And if you're new here, maybe this episode title caught your attention. Welcome to the Modern Psychedelics podcast. I'm so happy to have you here and just extending a very warm welcome to you in this space. So as the title says, Kanna is a legal, safe, natural, and research validated treatment option or ally for depression and anxiety. So I'm so excited about this and to share this with you that I'm really just going to get straight into today's guest and the content that we covered. Kanna is an amazing succulent plant medicine from South Africa. I've talked about it once before, a few episodes back, where Jenny and I talked about our experiences microdosing Kanna. But today I have an expert, Ryan Latrielle, on, and he really gives us the 101 on everything we need to know about Kanna. And what excites me most about Kanna is that in the psychedelic space, we think it's all about these like really big breakthrough journeys, mystical experiences, high dose experiences with psychedelics. And Kanna is actually the opposite. It is a gentle daily support that's more of a supplement than a high dose experience. Not to say that it can't be a high dose ceremonial experience, but in the way that we talk about it today, we're talking about it as this gentle daily support for anxiety and depression rather than a experience that you really have to carve time and energy out for. And that's what just excites me the most, because I think so many people listening can use that gentle daily support. Ryan Latrielle is the owner of two Kanna companies, Hearthstone Collective and Kanna Extract Co., who are a current sponsor of the show. He has so much information to share with us. He even helped Third Wave author their guide to Kanna microdosing. And he shared so much information with us that got me just feeling so hopeful about the potential for incorporating this more into the fabric of our society. Like I said, it's legal. Has a very low risk profile. It has been researched. The alkaloids have been researched. And you guys get this. There is a pharmaceutical company that we talk about that has done research on one of the main alkaloids in Kanna. And they sell this alkaloid and have patented it as a treatment for anxiety and depression. We talk about everything that Kanna is, what it might be useful for, even how it may be a healthier recreational medicine for people. We talk about the traditional background, the Khoi and the San people, how they have traditionally worked with Kanna. We talk about how Kanna is a empathogen rather than a classic psychedelic, and why empathogens are this class of substances that can be so healing, helping us to connect with our own emotions, and that in itself can provide a great experience for healing. We talk a lot about some of the active alkaloids in Kanna, how they impact you. We talk about dosing guidelines. We talk about microdosing Kanna or using it as a daily supplement. And we also talk about contraindications and risk factors. There's not many risk factors, but we do cover them. Talk a little bit about the neuroscience, what's going on in the brain under Kanna. We talk about Kanna versus MDMA. A lot of people compare Kanna to MDMA. They are a little similar, but mostly different. And then we talk about ways that one may consume Kanna via a capsule or an extract. So this is a beautiful conversation that I know is going to be so supportive to you and to anyone out there who may be looking for natural alternatives to anxiety and depression treatment. So all of that research is linked in the show notes for you guys. And if you found this episode supportive and you know that it may be supportive to a family member, I know I'm sharing this with my mom. Hi, mom. Or friend or anyone in your network, or even if you want to share it on social media, this is really valuable information. So go ahead and share it. And lastly, to my loyal listeners, I want to hear from you. I would love to have some feedback from you about how you're enjoying the podcast, what is valuable for you, what is not valuable, and ways that I can improve the show so that you're getting a valuable and inspiring experience, which is what I want for you. So please go ahead and fill out the feedback form. It really helps the show and to curate the content so that it's most supportive. And as a thank you, you will be entered to win one of 2 coaching sessions with me. So if you've been curious about coaching, this would be a really cool way to get a little taste of that. So I really appreciate your feedback. I appreciate you for listening. I say that every time, but you just don't know how much I do appreciate it, because it makes all the work that I put into this so worth it. So enjoy this podcast, and I'll catch you on the other side. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. Get ready to learn a lot during today's episode. I'm here with Ryan Latrielle, and he's going to talk to us all about Kanna. Welcome to the show, Ryan.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Do you want to just start by giving an introduction to the audience of who you are?
Sure. So my name is Ryan. I live in Southern California, and I am the founder of the Hearthstone Collective and Kanna extract company. We are setting out to provide the best possible Kanna extracts. So I'm really excited about this plant from South Africa and really excited to share with your community and answer your questions.
Yes, me too. And before we get into that, just so that we have an understanding of just who you are and your story, can you tell us a little bit about how you started working with Kanna and just the difference it's made in your life?
Sure. I was introduced to the plant over 11 years ago now. I was invited to a plant medicine ceremony where they were giving out what I learned was a combination, like a formulation that combined a Kanna extract with MDMA. And so this was like MDMA facilitated group therapy sessions. And it was actually the first time, not only that I was trying Kanna, but the very first time I'd ever had a psychedelic experience. And the first time I ever experienced what we call in the medicine space a heart opening. And this was a profound, incredibly impactful experience. I didn't know feeling something like that was possible. And I knew that these kinds of substances that I would later learn are called empathogens are really important, that they can really do a lot of good in the world and really help people connect with themselves and others in a much deeper way. So I continued to work with the plant only in that context for many years. And then within the last 5 years, with microdosing becoming more and more popular, and that's primarily with mushrooms that people are used to exploring microdosing, I started looking at Kanna more closely because it is a plant medicine, and Kanna really checked all the boxes. And the more that I learned about it, the more I realized that this plant is very special, and it really deserves its own place in our pharmacopoeia of psychedelic or plant medicine compounds. And people that are doing this kind of work, I think, would be really interested in the potential of this plant. So as I mentioned, I founded a company called Hearthstone Collective, and these are low therapeutic doses of Kanna that are meant to be taken daily. But this year I launched Kanna Extract Company, which offers very strong extracts of Kanna. And so this is getting more into the realm of like recreational or ceremonial doses of Kanna, depending on how you use it.
I'm curious, when you first started engaging with Kanna and you experienced this empathogenic heart opening effect, what did that do for you? Like, where were you in your life that made that so impactful for you to set you off on this journey of creating two Kanna companies?
I was living in Los Angeles, and I was working for a company called Recreational Juicery. They offered organic juices. It was really my first real job out of college, and I wasn't really doing much. I would say I was more of like a mountain biking bum and juice bum than anything else, just really coasting. And discovering psychedelics was really the first time that I felt or made contact with real purpose. I never had anything just ignite me like that. And I knew whatever I was going to be doing, it was going to be with these kinds of compounds that give you access to these states of consciousness. And yeah, as I mentioned, I really only worked with the plant in the ceremonial setting. I was fortunate enough to meet a lot of underground facilitators that were doing facilitated guided work with people. And the creation of Hearthstone was really to support people that were doing that kind of work, to give them a product or a tool that could help support people in their pre and post when it came to doing journey work. So something that would support their integration or give facilitators a touch point with their clients leading up to their first journey or their next journey, depending on how they worked with them. I wanted to create a legal microdosing product where people could explore this concept of working with plant medicines or working with microdosing with something that was like a really safe, gentle entry point.
Let's get into what is Kanna and where is it from? Can you tell us a little bit more about this beautiful little plant?
Kanna is a succulent that is found in the deserts of South Africa. It grows in a region called the Karoo. It's also called Kanna land. So this is a desert region that looks very similar to parts of the American Southwest. The plant is a central part of the culture for at least two indigenous communities within South Africa, namely the Khoi and the San. And these two cultures are referred to collectively in South Africa as the Khoisan or sometimes the Kai Korana. But they are two very distinct cultures, and both are ancient. They have done DNA testing on some San communities, and it is some of the oldest DNA on the planet. So these are ancient people with ancient cultures, and Kanna is very central to both cultures in their own way. And I think that speaks volumes to the importance of this plant. It is a true sacred plant. It's been used in ceremony in South Africa for thousands of years. It is technically psychoactive. It does have measurable effects when you take it on the central nervous system, though it's not a classic psychedelic per se, like tryptamines, like psilocybin or LSD. It falls into this category of medicines called empathogens, which are heart openers. So most people think of empathogens of things like MDMA or SAS or 2CB. But what's really unique about Kanna is that it's entirely plant-derived. These alkaloids exist naturally within the plant, and they have these effects just by taking them without really doing anything else to it. It's legal, and it can be microdosed in low doses with significant efficacy. There is a lot of research out there. A lot of it is funded by companies that have Kanna extracts, but it is really promising what it shows.
And why might someone want to work with Kanna?
What we have learned, the pharmacology of the plant is quite complex, and that would be its own question to go into. But just on a surface level, there's really two main uses of Kanna. In the therapeutic realm, Kanna appears to be able to support different aspects of mental health. And so primarily, people are looking at depression and anxiety when they're working with a low daily dose of Kanna. There are also pro-cognitive benefits of Kanna, and this gets into some of its pharmacology, but helping with focus and concentration. But I also think that there's other applications for other aspects of mental health as well, if it's used consistently and responsibly. So that's the therapeutic side of Kanna, which is really exciting because people are more and more looking for therapeutic options that don't have the side effects that come with a lot of the synthetic options that are out there. And then there's the recreational aspect of it, which is, I think, really exciting as well. With the right dose of Kanna and the right extract of Kanna, it does have felt euphoric and empathogenic effects. So you feel great. When you take it, you feel a lot happier, a lot lighter, you feel more connected, and especially if it's facilitated in the right kind of setting, whether that's a ceremony or a more like rave-like experience, it actually activates to be quite strong, and it also is a much healthier, safer alternative to things like alcohol or other substances that people look to in social recreational settings. So yeah, those are the two primary ways of how Kanna is used and why people like it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you mentioned the Khoi and the San cultures and their roots to Kanna. How have they been working with Kanna throughout the years?
Yeah, so looking at the San first, the San is a hunter-gatherer culture. And what is really amazing is that there are a lot of San communities that are still intact with their hunter-gatherer lifestyle, and there are very many communities like that left. One of the central figures in the San cosmology is the eland antelope. And it's an incredibly important figure in this shamanic tradition. And the name that they have the name of the antelope is Kanna, and they've given that same name to this plant. And as you look at the role that this antelope plays in their shamanic practices, it really starts to give you an idea of how essential and how spiritually potent this plant is from a plant medicine context. The koi are just as ancient, possibly more ancient. We don't actually know where they originated from because they are a nomadic culture that is a herding culture. So their lifestyle revolved around herding cattle and sheep, and these family units that manage these herds. And so the koi is made up of many different clans across the entire country. The koi also had a very, very close relationship with the plant. It was weaved throughout all aspects of life, taken both in ceremony as well as more socially and in lower doses, essentially daily use, daily microdoses of kanna and the way that they prepared it. And what's really interesting about the koi is that before these extracts existed, like the ones that I'm offering, these really strong commercial extracts, there was a lot of question marks around, and people still have question marks. Does kanna actually do anything? A lot of people try kanna, they don't feel anything, and a lot of that comes down to the alkaloid content of the plant. And it was where a particular clan that I work with and support, it was where they lived that this high alkaloid strain of Sciletium tortuosum was found and then brought into cultivation, and is basically what all the commercial kanna that you find, at most of it, the high alkaloid kanna comes from the plants that were found in where they lived.
Mm. And you were just visiting over in South Africa with the koi?
Yeah, so this particular clan is the late Richard Katela. So Chief Katela was a really important figure within the entire Kaikarana community, but especially for the koi that have really gone through a very difficult time in South Africa. Most of them live in an extremely low level of poverty, and the way that the koi are treated there is not good, and to the point where many are ashamed to even be associated with that word koi, or at least were. And Chief Katela, who was a brilliant man, he did a lot to help remind the different koi clans how important their culture is and what their relationship is to South Africa, and did a lot to reinstill their sense of identity and pride. And so I met with Chief Katela's brother, Sam, who's now the clan leader. 3% of all the kanna that I purchase from South Africa is currently supporting them specifically. And we support different projects that support the preservation of traditional koi culture. And the intention as my new company grows is to support the broader koi community, the San community, and the entire Kaikarana.
Yeah, that's amazing that you had an opportunity to just go on the ground there and really connect with the keepers of the medicine and the culture.
It was really cool. So the different koi clans, they all have different songs and dances that they teach to their children. And then the girls from the different clans will all gather together for almost like a festival where they'll all compete and share their songs and dances with each other. And it's a way of preserving the culture and their traditions as well. And so what we supported on this last visit was, I mentioned the level of poverty that a lot of them live in. And so they're just showing up with whatever clothes that they wear for this festival. And so we bought like traditional animal skins for them to actually cut and sew and make their traditional clothing that they would wear for these kinds of ceremonies for all the girls that are coming to gather for this. That's just an example of the kinds of projects that we're trying to support.
Yeah, and you did have a chance to connect with them, chat with them, discuss certain things. Just from what you gathered, what is their impression of sharing Kanna with the West and it being available here and the way that we engage with it here?
Sadly, not, at least this is what my experience of the few that I got to meet with. Sadly, a lot of them don't remember the old ways. A lot was done to suppress their traditional knowledge, not unlike what I'm an American, what we did in the United States to different Native American tribes. So a lot was done to erase their traditional knowledge, but they are really grateful. They are really just grateful and excited. And they want a way to be able to participate in not only the local economy there, but also the broader economy in South Africa and even further than that. And so I asked Sam Catella, what do you think are some of the best ways that we can help support, or what do you guys need? And he said that he felt that helping them start small businesses within their communities would go a really long way to improve their quality of life there.
You mentioned that a lot of the old ways and ancient wisdom has been suppressed. So what is their relationship with Kanna like today?
At least what I saw, very few use it. Very few really have access to it. And yeah, sadly, that is the state of the relationship with Kanna right now. They don't use it regularly. They don't, again, so when I speak about Kanna being used in a ceremonial context, this really points more to historical data about their cultures, not present day. They know of it, but it is not a central part of their lifestyle. As I said, they're really excited that it's a source of support and income for them. Within South Africa, every grower of Kanna is supposed to have some kind of benefit sharing agreement, though my impression was it's very loosely enforced, if at all. It seems like there's a lot of Khoi that don't know about Kanna. Chief Katella's particular clan, they know about it. They knew about these high alkaloid plants that existed within where they lived, though it doesn't seem like it was like I said, just a regular part of their lifestyle. I guess to just paint a more accurate picture of what life is like in South Africa, if you've ever seen it's pretty sad. If you've ever seen the movie District 9 and the way that they show these shanty towns, these people living in these structures that are just made out of plywood, whatever scrap plywood and scrap metal they can find. That's what a lot of people are living in. A lot of Khoi are living in that kind of environment. And so there's really, it's a very hard lifestyle. And just for them to be able and go and do the kinds of activities like I described with the singing and dancing is a pretty big change of pace from what day-to-day life is like for any kind of there's a lot of different indigenous communities within South Africa, and it is a pretty brutal existence. If you look at the statistics of just the level of violent crimes in South Africa, it tops the charts for most of them.
Yeah, I'm very aware of that. My childhood best friend is South African, and they had to leave when she was very young. So yeah, it's important to hear about like the roots of where these medicines are coming from. And thanks for providing us with a little bit of backdrop so that we can all understand a little more. How is Kanna Extract Company working with the communities in South Africa?
As I said, we go above what is legally required in South Africa, which is really, it puts the responsibility on the growers of Kanna itself. 3% of all of our Kanna purchases are going to support the preservation of traditional, and I say this including both the Khoi and the San, but Khoi San traditions and culture. And even that process, it may sound vague as I say it that way, but the process is really delicate. And I'm still just learning about what the social architecture looks like within these communities. You can't just start giving people money, because that's a really quick way of just destroying the fabric of their communities. And so we try to be really selective in the way that we do allocate that 3%, and so that these projects actually are helping, one, preserve the traditional culture and is helping build community rather than creating a situation where there's haves and have-nots. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's get a little bit into the medicine and what it would look like to work with it. So you mentioned that it's an empathogen, right? It's not a classic psychedelic, it's an empathogen. So it's going to create these feelings of open-heartedness, connection to oneself, to other people. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So when I say empathogen and distinguish that from a classic psychedelic or an entheogen, tryptamine alkaloids, things like psilocybin, LSD, ayahuasca, like these are entheogens. And the typical experience, or many experiences, are characterized by visuals. That's a big aspect of it for most people. Having some kind of like spiritual experience, which is where that word entheogen comes from, or a mystical experience is another way of describing that. Where empathogens are something very different. A lot of them are just a different alkaloid structure altogether, and they don't typically promote visuals. That's not typical for empathogens. What they do tend to promote are feelings of connection, empathy, which is where that word empathogen comes from, and a deepened emotional awareness. And I think this is what is so profound about empathogens, is that when you take them, there's something that happens where you seem to be able to better understand your own emotions and the emotions of other people. And that can have really big impact on not only just your relationship with other people, but your relationship with yourself. And it's why things like MDMA therapy, at least why I think it's been so effective for treating trauma and people with PTSD.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a healing experience to open up to the fullness and intensity of your own experience and someone else's experience. That is like a portal for healing and for deeper understanding and for gaining new insights.
Yeah. I personally feel that so much important work can be done in those states, and that especially the level of connection that you can experience when working with empathogens is almost more, at least my personal experiences, has been more important, more profound, and more healing than any of the really powerful spiritual experiences that I've had.
Yeah, because it's so human.
Yeah, and it's more integratable into our day-to-day, and it feels like an experience you're having here in this plane rather than in some other dimension. and there's something really magic about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's the nature of a lot of these earth medicines, right? They're very earthy and very grounded and very integratable and applicable to life on earth. Maybe other than ayahuasca, because that can take you some interesting places. But
yeah, it's its own thing.
Yeah, absolutely. What about the dosing, right? I've heard that you can even supplement daily with Kanna, which I'd love to hear your perspective on. And then what is a microdose? What is considered a high dose? What is a recreational dose? What is a ceremonial dose? Can you talk to us a little bit about dosing?
Yeah, that's really important, especially as you start to see more and more Kanna products out there, because not unlike cannabis or mushrooms, the amount of plant material that you're working with is irrelevant. What's really important is the alkaloid content of what's in the product or the extract or the plant that you're working with. And so when I say alkaloid, these are compounds found within the plant naturally that when you take them, they have a pretty big effect on your body. You feel them. So psilocybin is an example of an alkaloid that's found in mushrooms. THC is not technically an alkaloid, but that's like the main compound inside of cannabis that you are using to evaluate how strong a strain is. So within Kanna, mesembrine is that benchmark alkaloid that you use to evaluate the quality of a strain, the strength of a strain, or how strong of a dose that you're taking. So that's really what you need to look at. And so a microdose of Kanna is really anything between, again, this is going to be relative for everyone's different, but really you're looking at 5 milligrams of mesembrine or less. And this is a very potent alkaloid. And I'm sorry, the 3 milligrams of mesembrine or less, and this is a very potent alkaloid. It's measurably active on a microgram scale. And there are very few substances on the planet that are that potent. So you can take a much lower dose, and a lot of the studies come from a company called Zembrant. They patented an extract of Kanna, and it's just a standardized extract, but it's used for pharmaceutical application. It's prescribed for depression, anxiety, and a lot of the studies, if you go on PubMed and search for it, they're backed by Zembrant, and that's what they're studying. And you'll see that a very low dose of mesembrine can actually have a profound effect on anxiety and depression. When you start going above 5 milligrams, that's when you're getting more into the stronger felt effect in the moment with Kanna. So there's a lot of alkaloids in Kanna. This is a very botanically complex plant. There's at least 28 known alkaloids that each have unique effects on our body when you take them. But the 3 that we're really concentrated on are mesembrine, mesembrinone, and delta-7 mesembrinone. And it's with these 3 alkaloids that we're able to create extracts that can have a more stimulating effect or a more relaxing, sedating effect, and a broad range of effects in between. Because the mesembrine is what is stimulating. Like, this is responsible for that euphoric and pathogenic effect. Where mesembrinone is slightly relaxing, but where it really stands out is it appears to have PDE4 inhibition. And without getting too sciencey into what PDE4 inhibition means or does, pharmaceutical PDE4 inhibitors are used as like antipsychotics. So it has a lot of benefits for more intense mental health issues like schizophrenia or bipolar. And that is part of what the mesembrinone does, is act as an antipsychotic. And then delta-7 is the very relaxing, sedating alkaloid. With the ratio of those 3 alkaloids to each other, we create different blends.
Okay, I don't know about you, but I cannot stop hearing about Kanna. It's a succulent plant medicine from South Africa. Kanna has been traditionally used by the indigenous Khoisan people for mood enhancement, stress relief, and spiritual practices. Kanna is an empathogen, so it helps us to emphasize feelings of connectedness, open-heartedness, and calm. Some call it nature's MDMA, and some consider it a psychedelic, though pharmacologically it's not a classic psychedelic. But the best part of Kanna is that it's completely legal in North America and sold as a safe health product. I'm actually on a Kanna microdose today as I record this, and I'm exploring it as a supportive tool to shift my energy from high summer energy to more relaxed, productive fall energy. So this protocol is all about slowing down and rebuilding supportive habits and connection to myself so that I can have more intentional days. Kanna can be consumed via chewing, smoking, or making tea, but for the modern person, an extract is an easy and reliable choice because extracts are the most potent, reliable, and convenient option. Kanna Extract Co. is leading the way in creating quality, potent extracts. Their cutting-edge extraction process ensures absolute purity and the precise alkaloid profiles. For you, this means unparalleled potency and the amazing felt effects. Kanna Extract Co. also ethically sources their products, which is so important to me, working with growers who uphold benefit sharing agreements with traditional knowledge keepers. Their benefit sharing agreements showcase a dedication not just to product quality, but also to preserving and supporting the Khoisan culture. I love that Kanna Extract Co. is transparent about quality. They provide third-party lab testing and credentials like FDA inspection and GMP certification. You can easily access these reports on their website. So join me me and start your Kanna journey today. Visit kannaextract.com and you can use Lana at checkout to save 10%. That's kannaextract.com, Kanna extract.com, and use Lana, Lana, at checkout to save 10% off your first order. You guys are going to love this medicine. Okay, back to the episode. So I guess bliss would be probably more calm, relaxing, and lift is more stimulating?
Yeah, so lift has a much higher mesembrine content, where bliss is more balanced. It's lower mesembrine, higher both delta 7 and mesembrinone. And that is a noticeably different effect, where like the bliss, I personally think is really great for in ceremony, especially if you combine it with other substances, whether that's MDMA or mushrooms. Like it really makes it a beautiful heart-body experience, where the lift is like a more outgoing, outward. A lot of people take it intranasally, so it's actually like quite a great alternative for more harmful substances, more recreational intentions.
Yeah, I love that possibility for Kanna. I was actually at a party and this guy gave me some Kanna and he was so shocked that I knew what it was. And he was like, man, I wish more people knew about this because it's so much safer and it's natural. So it sounds like with the dosing, it just depends on the alkaloid profile and the percentage found in each.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I went so deep into the alkaloids, I forgot the original question. So yeah, the dosing, using these extracts as an example, third-party lab tested, so it's a 15% total alkaloid profile. And with that, anything under 25 milligrams or less is more in like the daily therapeutic, 50 you could take daily. And then it's above that it starts to get more recreational. And the upper limit would be 200 milligrams of an extract like that. And again, if you're evaluating different Kanna products, you really do need to look at that alkaloid content and compare that. And I imagine a lot of people listening are not novices to working with plant medicines. Learning your dose is really important. Starting low, finding out where your body responds to it before starting to go up from there. Yeah.
Okay, so 25 milligrams to 200 is the working range here, depending on what your goals are.
And where 10 milligrams daily has been really effective for, again, and I'm referring to Zembrin studies, but like that equivalent has shown to be really effective for depression and anxiety.
Yeah, amazing. With the daily use, that's treating it as a supplement, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what like the Hearthstone line is really designed to make it easy to take daily. It's pre-dosed. There's a different formula for different use cases. I think maybe I sent you the tincture to try. So that's a pretty low dose. One dose, 3 drops, has about 1 milligram of mesembrine in it. And so you can take that up to 3 times a day. Anyway, so the point is that there's a lot of different applications for it, based on what your need is and what best suits your lifestyle.
Yeah. If you're taking it daily as a supplement or whatever, a medicine, do you need to take breaks?
That's a good question. So the way I would answer that is everyone's different. If you're developing a microdosing protocol, working with a microdosing coach can be really helpful. Someone who really knows the terrain and like the different pathways that you can take and how to establish personalized metrics to evaluate, okay, I need more, I need less, I need to take a break. That said, you can take Kanna daily. It is non-addictive. It does not produce a tolerance.
Wow.
Yeah, in fact, most people find that the more that they take Kanna, the less that they and MOS that they want it. We could go pretty deep into the pharmacology, but it is doing a lot to bring your own systems back to a healthy, functioning state. I personally recommend that people, if they're going to take it daily, to do some kind of sequence protocol where there's on days and off days. I think 5 days on, 2 days off is a really good place to start, regardless of what you're microdosing. And then from there, doing more or less based on what your body seems to respond to. But there are people that take Kanna every day, their whole lives, and that precedent has been set by the traditional cultures who do use it. Like the San still use Kanna quite very regularly, and they use it from birth until death. So when a baby is colicky or teething, they'll take fermented Kanna and put it in breast milk and give it to the baby to help with the pain. They take it regularly throughout their whole lives. The elder members of these communities that use Kanna almost daily, they seem to be more lucid, have better cognitive faculties than those who don't. And they're all well-adjusted members of the community. So it's not really something that is abused.
Fascinating. So what would set apart like someone who would benefit more from that daily low dose of around 10 milligrams and someone who would benefit more from the microdose protocol of 25 to 50 milligrams?
I think anyone looking for support personally use the Bliss. I'm really excited. I have vapes that are I don't know when this will air, but there's kind of vapes that are coming out.
I'm so excited about those.
This has become my new go-to. I've moved through all of my products that I make. I really like Kanna for anxiety, and especially like I experience situational anxiety. So public speaking is a big one. And it really helps.
Is that why you have the vape beside you right now?
Yeah, so the vape is incredible. It's incredible. Yeah. I feel the way that I wish I felt when I smoked weed. Wow. I get very anxious when I smoke weed, and I don't seem to be able to function cognitively when I take it. And this just immediately, I feel so good. It just melts away stress. I actually physically feel less tension in my body, but I still feel very clear. So this has become my new go-to. Before that, it was just the Bliss. I would just take 2 scoops under my tongue. I supply some brands with just bulk extracts, and so they put it into drinks, they put it into edibles, they put it into sublingual tinctures. So really, I guess just find what works for you. For me, I'm the Bliss. It really helps with just stress in general. And I think that it's harder to notice this, but it really has helped with continuous daily use, with just raising the baseline of just being more positive and optimistic in general on a daily basis, being able to be more resilient to just an incredibly stressful world, it seems like right now. So I believe that this can help everyone. That's why I'm doing this, but it's such an individual journey. I guess I would because its risk profile is so low, I do think that it's worth exploring for most people.
Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking of my mom who, is a ball of anxiety and stress, and rightfully so. She's survived a war with me in her arms as a baby. Like, she hasn't had a lot of time to heal herself. So it expresses itself through her anxiety. And I got her onto microdosing mushrooms for a while, and she actually, without even asking me, listened to my Kanna microdosing episode and started microdosing the Kanna that I have from you. And she said that she really prefers it to microdosing mushrooms, and that it's been really supportive for her anxiety. So we're going to keep her on that and see what happens in the long term. But it sounds like it's just really supportive for people who are managing anxiety, particularly.
That's really cool. That
She's
means 64. A lot to me. Yeah, can I ask what war you're referring to?
Yeah.
Can I hear more about that?
Yeah, the Kosovo conflict in former Yugoslavia. So it started when I was like 6 months old. And
wow.
Yeah, we went through that together as a family. And I've obviously done so much therapy around it and healing with the plants, but my parents haven't. They still have those like forms of anxiety that are present.
Yeah, I imagine just real PTSD.
Yeah. Someone like my mom who is dealing with the day-to-day anxiety and just wants to get through the day more peacefully. Do you think something like the microdosing protocol with a slightly higher dose or the daily supplementation would be better for her?
Honestly, I would ask her what appeals more to her.
Okay.
I'm always surprised by people in general. And it's really cool to see how open people are to Kanna. It seems to be the general sense is that it is a great entry point for people to explore this. It's much less intimidating. It doesn't have a lot of the everything that comes with the 60s and what was used in the 60s. So for her in particular, I think I would give her the bliss. I would give her 1 to 2 scoops of the bliss, and I would either put it in a drink, unless she can just, it is a very bitter extract, but if she can handle the taste under her tongue, I think that would be great.
Yeah, that's what she's been doing. Yeah. So for people who are listening in a similar situation, yeah, maybe give it a shot for managing those daily stressors.
Yeah, I think this is probably a good point to talk about contraindications and who might not want to explore Kanna, or when you should talk to a doctor first. So the risk profile is very low for Kanna. There's no known lethal dose. There's no one that has died on Kanna, at least that I know of. And I have done a lot of research on it. The people that want to be careful, and like the general blanket disclaimer I have for my products, is that if you are on really any medication, you need to talk to your prescribing physician before really engaging in any of this kind of work. But particularly SSRIs and MAOIs, those are the two that you'd really want to be careful about. It's advised not to take Kanna and those at the same time. If you are currently prescribed those and you want to explore Kanna, then talk to your doctor about it. The potential risk factor is having a serotonergic reaction. This is serotonin syndrome, which at the most extreme side effect is death. The least extreme is just feeling like a headache. And then that's a pretty broad range in between. So yeah, because there is a risk that's why it's advised not to combine them. A lot of people still want to take Kanna because they are, especially when it comes to SSRIs, people are looking for alternatives. They don't have side effects. And so they want to explore something like Kanna. And I've found that a lot of doctors want to support their patients in finding natural alternatives too. It actually is probably a pretty easy conversation to have. The hardest part will just be that a lot of them don't know about Kanna. I can send you a link to different research, and you could maybe post it in the show notes or something for people to be able to look at more of what research is out there and available, and they could show that to their doctors. What I would say is that if you are taking low doses of Kanna, the risk of having that kind of reaction is pretty low. It's really when people are taking high doses of psychedelics, like really high doses, and they're doing it a lot, that you start to see people go into serotonin syndrome, and they're on SSRIs. You don't see a lot of that with low dosing. And my experience with it is that the side effects do begin to appear gradually. So it's something that you notice. And if you notice it, then you can make adjustments, like cut one of them out. And that's why I think that if you are being prescribed these medications and you work with a doctor, that's a dialogue that you could be having to do it safely, potentially. But yeah, other than that, it's not like taking psilocybin or LSD. Like generally, if you're like bipolar or something like that, you might want to be careful. This plant has a much safer profile. I should say, if you have a medical condition like that, you should also be talking with your doctor before starting anything. But as I mentioned, that mesembrenone is a PDE4 inhibitor, and it does seem that PDE4 inhibitors do have a lot of benefits for mental health issues like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so it does impact the serotonin system, or the serotonin transmitters. Can you speak just a little bit about like the neurochemistry, what's going on in the brain, what Kanna is affecting?
Okay, I'll try to speak just a little bit, but cut me off when I get too deep into it. So,
yeah, it doesn't have to be super scientific. Just give people, my listeners know that they're not getting super in-depth science on my podcast. But if you could just speak into what effects are happening in the brain or the body.
Yeah, a lot. And this is what we know so far, and it's really exciting. It's a bioamine releasing agent. It's stimulating the release of more serotonin, more dopamine, and more norepinephrine into the synapse. And just that has a lot of effect. Just having more of those neurotransmitters available have broad reaching effects. It also has light SSRI activity. So it functions similar to a way that a synthetic SSRI does, but I would say in a more natural or healthier way. It doesn't seem to have any of the side effects that come with synthetic SSRIs. And it functions lightly in that capacity where it's preventing the reuptake of these neurotransmitters so that there's more available. It is also a PDE4 inhibitor. And PDE4 inhibitors, as I mentioned, are used quite successfully in the pharmaceutical world as antipsychotics. It is a VMAT2 upregulator, which basically when VMAT2 is inhibited, it actually promotes the breakdown of dopamine. So it increases dopamine levels when you have a VMAT2 upregulator, as well as a lot of pro-cognitive benefits. But really, if you're just looking at it with these three modes of action, it's really doing a lot to increase the amount of dopamine, norepinephrine, serotonin. It's part of the reason why you feel great when you take Kanna. But also, if you look at all the functions that these neurotransmitters play, Kanna is helping upregulate that from start to finish. And something actually very interesting about VMAT2 that I just read last night is if you Wikipedia the God gene, it looks at this theory, this book that was written about VMAT2 upregulators, and there's something that it does for the brain that allows it to be more like mystical experiences to be more accessible, which I think is really cool. And again, there's a lot of criticism and skepticism of how valid this is, but it would speak to its use in microdosing with these indigenous cultures in acting as a gate. And I think that's something really cool about microdosing Kanna as like a plant medicine, is that it's opening up your own intuitive channels, your own access to spirit. And that is something that I've heard anecdotally a lot by people that work with Kanna in a more plant medicine and ceremonial context.
Yeah. Yeah, and that just opens us up to all the answers that are already within us and the transformation that can happen with that. It's so much more powerful when we are able to find that source of wisdom within us versus reading about it in a book or listening to someone else talk about it. So it's powerful stuff. And it sounds like it's really a nootropic, like, powerhouse in the brain.
Totally. If you think about the role that dopamine plays with how we currently approach ADD and ADHD with medications, it does seem like a more natural way to approach what's happening with dopamine and helping with concentration and focus and presence.
Yeah. Huge. I know I have a huge group of listeners who resonate with being neurodivergent or having an ADHD diagnosis. So that's very helpful. Can you talk a little bit about the research? I know we're going to link it for people below, but are there any general strokes that you can paint for us about what the research has found over the years? And is there any long-term effects that people should be aware of?
Yeah, so with the research, what was really unique about Kanna is that we have been studying people microdosing Kanna for almost 30 years now. And we don't have that length of data on anything else that's being microdosed. And so that's really cool. I think that really speaks to its safety profile, because we know that you can take it for very long periods of time with not only not side effects, but it seems like without diminishing returns. So that's really cool. A lot of the studies have been funded. I mentioned a company called Zembrin, And again, this is like true low therapeutic dose of Kanna. So a lot of what you'll find out there is backed by them. And it really, but these are human studies. These are studies with human participants that are taking it in a different dose range and for both depression and anxiety. And you can see the efficacy there, which is really exciting. It is pretty safe. Doesn't have any of the side effects that most people report when they're on like a antidepressant. I would say the most common side effects that I hear or see are like a headache or nausea, and it's pretty rare. Yeah, there is some really cool, I don't know if you would call this research as much as other companies that are starting up with Kanna that are more in this phytopharmaceutical realm. So there are some really cool companies that are they're pharmaceutical companies, but they are looking to create completely like naturally derived compounds that have real medical efficacy. And so there's a company called Kanna Health that is developing a Kanna product that is designed to help with like men's sexual health. I think it's primarily marketed for premature ejaculation, but there are also unique alkaloids in Kanna that act as a natural PDE5 inhibitor, which is how like Viagra works. So that's one thing I've heard. I have heard of companies that are, or at least one company that is developing, it's supposed to act as a stepping stone for therapists that want to start working with clients with something that is legal and feels like MDMA. So that's really cool too. So that's on the horizon at some point. Yeah, that's what comes to mind as far as the research.
What can you say about the similarities and differences between Kanna and MDMA?
So they're both bioamine releasing agents. They're both releasing more of these neurotransmitters into your synapse. The biggest difference is that the phenethylamines, like MDMA, they all have an amphetamine component to it. They need that stimulant to activate it. And Kanna lacks that on its own, which is why it's not really fair to say that it's a natural MDMA, because it doesn't have that on its own. And that stimulant really is what creates that rolling feeling that you have when you take MDMA. So there's a pretty big difference. And I think it's important to level set expectations for people when they take Kanna. That said, Kanna, when you add that stimulant component to it, you can do some really cool things. And even at the low end, with something that's legal like caffeine, if you combine with caffeine, like it feels really amazing. If you combine it with MDMA, and I know there's a lot of people that are running around facilitating experiences with like basically MDMA and Kanna, it's incredible. Like it doesn't feel like either. It's its own thing. You still have a profound heart opening, but it's so smooth and gentle, and you don't feel all wired and strung out the next day. And my preferred is actually mushrooms and Kanna because psilocybin is stimulating enough to where it's beautiful, and you feel a lot better the next day. Like you feel great, and you can do a microdose of mushrooms, or you can do a full dose with, again, the same amount of Kanna, or at least the bliss extract, 100 to 200 milligrams, and it'll feel real heart open. And it really grounds the experience in the heart and body. It's not MDMA. MDMA is great, but if you've done MDMA a lot, it really starts to take a toll on you. You start looking for alternatives to that. I think mushrooms and Kanna is a great alternative to that.
Yes. Following the harm reduction protocols with MDMA is important, right? Shouldn't be more than a couple times a year. Okay. Wow, so much information. I cannot wait to explore Kanna more now that I've gotten a taste of it with microdosing. I'm so excited to try this vape pen and to see how it mixes and combines with different medicines. And I'm excited for my mom too to explore this, and for everyone listening.
Yeah, me too. I'm a big fan of Kanna. And
I wonder if I can show you. This is a paint. My mom's an artist.
Yeah.
And I commissioned her I just moved into my new house, but I commissioned her to paint this
Wow,
painting
so
of Kanna here.
beautiful.
Yeah, I actually did that one too.
So gorgeous.
Yeah. So I'm all in on Kanna and always happen to talk about it.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing everything today. The last thing I want to ask you about is why someone would choose to work with an extract versus a tincture or the capsules. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's a good question. The extracts I wanted to offer in their pure form because I'm a formulator, a medicine maker, and I just really like to work with the raw material. And so I think if you are a medicine maker or medicine person, that it's really cool to work with the raw extracts because then you can make your own blends. Yeah. Also, if you're going to take it intranasally, obviously you want a really pure extract. The powders are great for intranasally. I think the vapes are an amazing application. It's become my favorite because it's such a fast onset and the feeling is so much different than when you take it.
And how would you work with the vape? Can you just keep hitting it? What do you...
So I have given it to people and they feel it right away. I've taken it and it doesn't hit me until 20 minutes later. So I think what's important is that the first time you're doing it, you just do a few puffs, see how you feel. This is a new product that's literally in development still.
Okay.
So that's why I don't have the answer to that. But I would say the upper dose would be hitting it like 9 times a day. So how you could take it is if you're in a social setting, you're at a party, you don't want to drink, you don't want to take something more intense, but you want to feel good and more open, is a great thing to take. If you deal with anxiety, this is incredible. If you deal with episodic anxiety, this is a great application. They're nicotine free, they're cannabis free, you're not high, you just feel really good when you take it. I have the Hearthstone line, which is sublingual in the line of capsules. For people that are looking for more specific help with a different area, like with focus or with sleep, or you can see the whole line that's on there, those are very intentionally designed stacks with other plant medicines to really support that particular area of mental health and designed to be taken daily like you would any other supplement. And so those are very easy to use. We got into a little bit about the extract itself and the way that like the traditional preparation, the plant would have much lower concentration of these alkaloids than what we're able to produce now. But the plant is also in its raw form, it's really high in oxalic acid. So what the Koi and the San and really intelligently discovered was that they had to find a way to get rid of the oxalic acid. And so they would masticate, but they would grind the Kanna, and it's a succulent. It's full of its own juices and water. And they would put all of that smashed plant material into a skin or a gourd and let it ferment. And that fermentation process would eat up all the oxalic acid. And then they would dry it. And then the 2 most common ways of taking it would be to either chew on it. So they would braid it up and then chew on it. And that would be like a microdose form. But they would also take that dry material and smoke it. And that would be a much stronger way of taking it. And there is a strong belief in the anthropological community that they would also combine it with other compounds, like cannabis is a really ancient combination. They would combine and smoke it for a more mystical experience.
What should people look for with the alkaloid content?
I would look for an actual lab test, ideally third-party lab test, not a COA that's generated in-house by the company. And on that lab test, I would at least look for what the mesembrane content is. And if ideally other alkaloids, find out how much mesembrenone or delta-7 or mesembrenol, how much all those are in there. I would say look for the mesembrane because that's the easiest one to test for. Not a lot of labs have the reference standards to test for the other alkaloids.
Is there a percentage that would classify one as table grade versus a nutraceutical?
It's not that as much as just I've never seen high potency products come out of table grade.
Gotcha.
That's more what I'm saying, rather than you be able to look at a percentage and see.
Okay. Yeah, well, I think that this is a wealth of information for people who are out there thinking about engaging with Kanna. So thank you so much for sharing. Can you just let people know where they can find you and your products and where they can get in touch with you?
Yeah, so kannaextract.com is where you'll find the pure extracts and eventually the Kanna vapes. And then the Instagram or social media for that is just at Kanna Extract. And then if you go to hearthstonecollective.com, that's all the daily use Kanna products. We also offer formulation and product design and bulk Kanna extracts. So you can reach out to either of those companies if that's of interest as well.
Perfect. And we'll post all of that in the show notes. And I have codes where people can save a little bit of money for both your companies. So we'll make sure we put that in there as well. Anything else you want to leave our listeners with today?
No, thank you so much. I had a blast.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ryan. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much for listening to and supporting the show. To stay in touch, sign up for my mailing list, which can be found in the show notes or on modernpsychedelics.net. If this episode sparked something within, please let me know by leaving a review of the Modern Psychedelics podcast on Apple and Spotify. This really helps to share these messages with those who need them, which is the whole reason why I do what I do. And if you haven't already, come join the ongoing conversation over on Instagram with other beautiful souls. We have an incredible and conscious community over at the handle Modern Psychedelics. And don't forget that the work begins after you come back down to earth. And I'm standing shoulder to shoulder, doing it with you.